So this particular panel, we're going to talk essentially about the future of fan experience. It's the title of it, better than live, mobile, inside the stadium, that kind of thing. But really what we're talking about is the future of fan experience. We've got four great people here that we're going to talk with here. I'll go right down the line. Just give us a brief introduction.
Yes, Bob Jordan, consultant and an owner's rep in the sports space. Effectively, my expertise is when you look at it, where the built environment, the technology, and the experience, meaning both the guest experience and the partnership experience, where those three lines intersect. Projects I've worked on, kind of large ones, is MetLife for the Jets and Giants. Every major league ballpark I've been involved with projects on. More recently, Little Caesars Arena for the Pistons and the Red Wings, US Bank Stadium for the Vikings, VTB Arena in Moscow, a couple cricket buildings in India, a very wide range of facilities and major projects.
Okay, Jared.
My name is Jared Darensberg. I work with the entertainment BU for Panasonic, mostly visual, so flat panel, projector display, LED. I handle a lot of the shows in Las Vegas, so Chris Angel's show, working with Zappos Theater, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Cirque du Soleil. I also handle LAFC, was one of our big activations here in Los Angeles, work with the Dodgers. So a number of visual products that Panasonic manufacturers, and mostly how those activations look, and it sounds cliche, but creating that fan experience, as this gentleman mentioned over here. And so hello.
Jen.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Van Dyke. I spent most of my career on the agency side, as well as at the NBA and the Clippers. And I'm back at Wasserman now, where I work between representing our brands, our properties, and our athletes in their various ways of generating larger revenues out of digital platforms.
Terrific. Alvin, I don't think we need a new introduction, do we?
No.
Everybody knows Alvin? All right. Okay, so as we get into this, Jared, this will be the first question for you, and I know, Robert, this will be really interesting for you as well in your world. So if we go back, like in history, let's go back 6 years. We didn't see connected stadiums. People were talking about it, hadn't been perfected yet, that kind of thing. We advanced to now, we get connected stadiums and all of that, and then into the future, we're going to talk about what these venues are going to look like down the road. One of the areas, and it's been touched on a little bit this morning, is integration of technology. We started the first discussion with Tony Pastore from the Rams was, we haven't really decided on the integration of which technology. We have to be careful what's going in because we don't want to get 5 years down the road and then have to replace everything all over again. In your world of hardware and that type of thing, in that tech space, how important is it that process of integrating the technology effectively, the storytelling, the content, that kind of thing?
So it's immensely important. So you really want to be able to future-proof your stadium, right? So if you take a look at the Angels, not since the stadium was built until about last year did they actually update all the equipment. So when it came to the LED boards and the ribbons and the displays all throughout the stadium, it was very old. What's big on the integration side is being able to create an immersive environment. So what stadiums have done and what we've all adopted is how do we create an immersive fan experience? And we base that off of, for Panasonic, largely on our partnership with Disney, right? So Disney kind of drives our world in terms of projection. And so what you're going to see in the future for integration is a lot of projection mapping on the courts of the NBA stadiums. So just recently I worked with the Dallas Mavericks, Jerome Elenez is their head of marketing, on Dirk's last game. And if any of you got a chance to take a look at that, they did a large projection map on the floor with a lot of visual effects, and it creates that wow factor for the fan experience, right? People are taking videos, people are posting to their social media, and that's how you really draw in the crowds with those visual effects. LED boards are great. We can all hang and bang things at stadiums and put stuff up that'll look cool, but it's how do you draw people in? How do you create that immersive experience in that everlasting, that remembrance of the actual event itself? Mm-hmm. We want to be more than just a hardware manufacturer. We don't want to just put up security cameras and put up LED boards and put up projection. we want those security cameras to actually do something for you. So we have technologies that are facial recognition. So, you know, and I think it was utilized at the Atlanta Braves Stadium, where we can actually detect people who are on a bad list, right? So if you have people that may have been kicked out of a game before, or banned from the stadium, you know, once those people are loaded into those lists, you know, we can identify them through our facial recognition technology. So the ability to, and that list will grow over time, right? And we can connect it to different, you know, systems. But the ability to really future-proof and identify what they want to accomplish from a visual perspective is the biggest, you know, piece of the pie there.
Okay.
I know that you know, and this is moving away from some of the sports stuff, but in a lot of the shows in Las Vegas is you know, we just finalized Chris Angel's new show at Planet Hollywood, and he didn't just want to put up LED and put up projection.
Right.
He wanted to draw people in, so he projection mapped onto the walls, as you know, and he incorporated that into his magic. So now when you're sitting in the theater, you're actually seeing things come out of the walls and spiders come out of the walls, things come up out of the floor, and it really draws you into that fan experience, and it really makes it a better event. It's you know, all around.
Robert, you're probably drilling it in on this one.
Yeah, you know, I think when you talk about integration in one thing, and I'll applaud the Rams for the way they've been going about on their build, is that when you look at how we consume product, and we have to look at what our fans are doing and how they consume, it's becoming a software-defined world. And the reason I say software-defined is that we can't rely on one piece of hardware to solve all of our issues. And this is really, I mean, there's a lot of acronyms, and we can talk about cloud basis and different things like that. But we have to start looking at this future-proofing. I'm going to go upstream where you were going downstream. Is upstream from that is that how do our fans consume it, and do they consume it the same way given the environment they're in? Meaning that in a certain facility, your fans on a certain event, so let's say it's a stadium and you're NFL, okay, your fans are going to consume your NFL a certain way, and they're going to use your building a certain way. On a concert situation, they're going to consume that concert and what you do in your building very, very differently. And that means everything from how they arrive, the parking, the food and beverage, the amenity, the merchandise, the music, the content, the streaming, all of these things. And the advantages of that technology is it's in an instant transaction. You know immediately if you've done something right. Now, you'll know in your pocketbook, but you can also look at how they consume it. So I think, I know it was a little kind of an esoteric answer in that sense, but we're moving much more quickly from a technology perspective away from hardware to define our experience to software, and how to marry those two elements so that our fans consume our product the way they want to consume it. And a fan that's consuming your product the way they want to will leave more dollars in your building.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jen, Alvin?
Yeah, I think I would echo the sentiment where, you know, especially with Clippers Court Vision, we're looking for ways in which we can provide something the way a user wants it. And so the idea behind creating these different modes is that they are representative of this notion that every individual wants something unique to them and the ability to customize their own experience. And I think we just created these modes as gateways for that. And they're representative of the possibility that's there, where as a consumer, we've come to expect customization almost in every facet of our lives. And why shouldn't we apply that same sort of sentiment to, you know, our sports viewing habits?
Right.
I think along with that too is this idea that you touched on earlier about lag, right? We've also come to expect it immediately and right now. And you think about what you guys are creating, you also think about what sports betting is coming our way, right? And the fact that you can't sit in an arena today and place a bet, really because of the data lag. Yeah. It's not because the technology doesn't exist. I mean, yes, there's legal stuff too, but just a couple. It's a different panel, I'm sure. But you know, that's also part of this promise of 5G when it's actually real, and what that means for all of us, and that is pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, right. Now, Robert, next question for you, and it kind of builds on that last one. When you and I spoke before the panel a couple of days ago, you talked about, you know, the design of venues and the need to kind of reverse engineer these places in order to get at what the customer actually wants. So if you think in terms of the friction points of why people don't go to sporting events. So here in LA, obviously, it's the traffic, the parking, the price of concessions, the price of the tickets, all of these things that are, you know, little nuanced things, but they become big things too, depending on fans. So maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, when I talked about the reverse engineering, really I'm just going to pile on my answer before. It's about how do the fans consume the sport? Why do they come? We're tribal. We get that. We love a live experience. But when you look at the built environment, what we do today from an architecture of a building has not changed in 2,000 years. And I'm sure everybody's going to go, okay, he's going to the Roman Colosseum. Yeah, I am, because that's actually our metric, is that there's an urban context of a multi-purpose facility. There's gates, there's concourses, there's vomitories, and there's a seating bowl. And then there's amenities to go along that. All right, now, from an architectural perspective, are we presently using our buildings the way they're designed, or are they being designed the way we actually use them? And I think that is actually a conflict, because think about this modern day, is that if you start looking in your fan base, especially in an NFL game which has large pauses between plays, what are the fans doing? Primarily they're looking down. They're looking at their own device. So this is the content that they want to consume, but they're interacting here. All right, that opens up another things. And I'll give you one little quick metric on this, is that, example, when I did MetLife with the Jets and Giants, we were well over 200 suites. All right, SunTrust Park in Atlanta is 15 suites. All right, there's a very, very different. Now, SunTrust Park in Atlanta has 7 layers of premium amenity, or I'll say amenity, take off premium, between the foul poles. There's traditional seating, there's 4 tops, there's counters, there's 8 packages, 16 packages, 4 packages. That wasn't enough, and so after the first season, those programs were expanded. It's what are we doing to really understand how our fans consume what we do? And there's a demographic underneath this, is that look at who is buying our season ticket or our premium products. Baby boomers, and this is a little generalization, but baby boomers loved suites. They loved that nice luxury appearance. Millennials aren't really into the suite world. You look at Gen X, iGen, and Gen Y, they want a communal experience with that live experience, but they don't want to be separated out. So it's a very, very different way, and I think you have to start looking at how does that affect how we design our buildings, because they want something different. The people, you know, and you know, you look at a lot of the teams in their sales forces, the phone calls they made 5 years ago, 10 years ago, are very, very different than the phone calls they make today about what they're selling. We have to react to that in this built environment.
And this has a huge impact, obviously, with if you're renovating a stadium as opposed to building new, because to retrofit something that's, you know, like the Rose Bowl or the Coliseum, which is happening now, that's a much different conversation than if you're starting new.
Yeah, and as a caveat, so it's also about the analytics behind it, right? So Mark, you know better than anybody, and we've gone to numerous teams and talked about, you know, us as well as other manufacturers have technology that you can actually take your phone, hold it up to a light source, and it'll transmit the information that's in that light source, whatever you want it to be. It could be a website, it could be your information, or it could be a video that we pulled from YouTube. But that information can be transmitted. But what it also can be is it can be tracked. So if I'm walking through a venue, if I'm walking through Dodger Stadium or through LAFC, and I walk up to a display and hold my phone in front of it, that information can now be pushed to my phone so I can take it with me. But it can also tell me, as a general manager, as the facilities guy, as anybody in the organization, where people are trafficking. So I can see a heat signature map and know that people are moving through the venue in a certain way versus another way, or I'll say the hot dog stand is over in Concourse B is being frequented more than this hot dog stand or beer stand over here. So I can tailor it to your likes and dislikes as well. One thing that we talked about, and I'll make it brief, but at USC, you may be more into the Olympics in 84, right? 84
Yeah.
Olympics, yeah, 84 Olympics. I may be more into USC football. So as I go and I take the tour at USC, and I scan those plaques that are on the walls, that information may be more tailored to me. So I get to hear about Marcus Allen. I get to see him run a touchdown against Notre Dame. Or you get to see, I think, who
was John F. Kennedy.
John
There's
F.
everybody
Kennedy.
from
Yeah.
John F. Kennedy to Nelson Mandela.
Exactly. There's so many things that have happened there, but you can tailor the experience and then also have the analytics behind it to understand, where your consumer, where your customer is actually, what they're interested in, where they're moving throughout your venue. So
Right,
that's another piece of it.
and to add on to that, I mean, you can do this in any language.
Exactly.
Depending on what the phone's programmed to, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. I'm just going to switch gears here a little bit. Jen's worked with the NBA, Wasserman, not in any particular order, but when I met you, you were with Wasserman. You went to the NBA, you went to the Clippers. Now you're back with Wasserman.
Yeah.
And you guys, so you've run the gamut. But right now you guys are involved in an exciting thing called Athlete Exchange and developing some new tech there. Tell us about that initiative and how you think it's going to kind of alter the fan experience, if you will, the customer experience for you
For
guys on
sure.
a broader scale.
No, I think, and it's a perfect play on this, right? Because I think what we're also talking about is how fans are controlling their fandom.
Yeah.
They make decisions every day of, is it worth my time and money to go to the game versus stay at home and experience it, or enjoy it on multiple platforms, and they're making those control decisions. I think at the same time, it's accruing in the athlete's favor, because this is not about being a fan of ESPN or CBS or et cetera, right? It's about being fans of athletes, and the data shows that people are fans of athletes first, teams second, and sort of leagues and other properties, third. And what's fascinating about it is, according to like Facebook and Twitter, I think you follow on average 6 athletes, 2 teams, and 1 league as a human being on social globally. And what that also means is that athletes are really, truly the new sports media networks in and of themselves. And that creates an opportunity for a company like Wasserman that represents almost 2,000 athletes that frankly have voices and stories and are incredibly smart and articulate, storytellers in their own way, not just with their physical abilities. And so what we did is to take advantage of this trend and this opportunity is create the production and the strategy and the sales process behind this opportunity. Because unlike traditional influencers, beauty, fashion, lifestyle influencers, their whole business is creating their own content. Well, everyone else creates content around athletes and highlights and sports shows and commentary and things like that. So we've taken the opportunity and as a company made the investment in producing this content and creating the strategy to help sell these as media buys now to athletes. And we're extremely excited about it. We've been sort of open for business a month. We have 20 people on the team, and we're way ahead of expectations because the market is so ready for this opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting from a storytelling perspective, and I don't want to embarrass her, but a close friend of mine, Roberta Perry's here from a company called Edwards Technologies, and they do an awful lot of work in the themed entertainment space, and they always talk storytelling.
Yeah.
Right, and that's something that sports hasn't really done until recently. They're starting to get that. I mean, who does storytelling better than Disney, Universal, that kind of thing, right?
And character development.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, if a good story is composed of advancing plot or developing character, I think we've advanced plot enough in social media of here's my lifestyle, isn't it glamorous? Now it's about developing character and those stories of not just competing on the court, but what is it like to have a baby and come back if you're the Lamoureux twins in USA Hockey? If you're, an older athlete transitioning, God forbid, through your 40s, right? And into the next part of your career and things like that. There's stories and relevance for everyone and every fan base.
Yeah, absolutely. Alvin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like, this whole notion of content and just developing characters. I feel like that's a problem MLB has run into with, Mike Trout is arguably the best player, in baseball, and yet the narrative now around him is they've struggled to develop his brand, or even when they gave him the $400 million plus contract, it was like, but is he marketable? And well, that's a question that MLB has to ask of themselves. Like, what are they doing to help put him on a platform and make him marketable to the level of, your average NBA player. So I think it's interesting. It's awesome that you guys are helping, I think, develop the characters of those athletes, because I think there are certainly, the NBA doesn't suffer from it much. But the other sports that, among your 4 major sports, like who's your go-to guy in the NHL? Is it Ovechkin? Is it Crosby? Like, are they
Austin Matthews.
Austin,
Being Canadian, I have to say that.
Oh, sorry, John Tavares. There you go.
Wasserman Klein.
Even though they lost on my birthday last week, I mean, Game 7 and everything else.
So I just think that it's very interesting, and I think, helping athletes tell their stories. I think, we deal in video any way that we can help provide that augmented video for them. That'd be great. We'd love to, support those efforts. On
part of the challenge, if I might, part of the challenge with Major League Baseball along with professional hockey is that they're more team-oriented sports than the promotion of stars, that kind of stuff that we've seen in the NBA and the NFL. So culturally, within their locker rooms, it's a challenge, without a doubt. More so in hockey than even in Major League Baseball.
Well, in fact, it's a really interesting point, because we represent both Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid. And unless we present them a concept that actually showcases the team above the individual, it's a dead stop no from the beginning. But it creates a new way of telling that story, right? And frankly, data is an incredibly compelling component of that, to be able to showcase the value of that team. And brands love it. I mean, I think American Express has run a teammates campaign across the NBA for at least the last 2, if not 3 seasons, about showing that value in that. So I think every stakeholder really has an interest in that.
Yeah. Alvin, I'm going to kick back to you we saw your video and everything, great presentation, by the way. And just more about the philosophy of Clipper Vision, and what's the goal with it? How is it going to change the fan experience, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so our company, Second Extraction, was founded by a couple of former professors, so they think of everything in terms of a thesis and trying to prove out that thesis. And very new to me. I'm not an academic by any stretch. But the thesis is, this idea we need to, if everybody had their choice, they would choose something different that is unique from Jen or from Jordan. Like, we want different ways to experience that. And we believe that technology is the fastest way, well, it is the fastest way to be able to explore that space and find out what it is that ideal deliverable. And I think, again, I mentioned sort of the different modes that we have is just proxies for like what's really possible and what is that sort of individual experience that really makes it special and makes you, and honestly, we think it's a vehicle for building engagement by sort of lowering the barrier of entry for a lot of fans to sort of learn the game or learn more about them, because we're so interested in these athletes. We think and we hope that it would make you even more interested to go attend and go in the arena and go see it for yourself and go see it and experience it, or bringing that experience to you so you get a taste of it. We don't think it's going to take away from sort of attendance in the arenas. We think, oh no, it's going to build your sort of your fandom even more so. And that's really what we want to do, is that if we can, by creating these individual customized modes, if we can help build the sort of fandom that you have, the passion that you have for a team, a player, what have you, that's only going to make you more in love with the sport, and it's going to make you want to associate yourself in every way, every touch point possible, whether it's at the arena or some signing event. Like, you're going to feel even closer to the game. And I think those are some of the wide-reaching things we hope come of this sort of the product that we're launching into the space.
Absolutely. Robert, one of the other things we talked about was how you're feeling, and just your extensive experience, that sports and entertainment venues have lagged far, far behind gaming and retail in terms of customer knowledge, data, knowing your customer, that kind of thing, and talk about that maybe from a monetization standpoint, data gathering, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you just mentioned, we're just now starting to talk about fans going around the base. And I'll try to make this as brief as possible, but you think about a typical NFL stadium experience. East Coast game's going to start at 1 p.m. local time. Typically, those parking lots are going to open between 6 and 8 a.m. All right, the game's going to be done at 4 o'clock. People who are in the parking lot will probably hit your turnstiles anywhere around 12:30, say, on average. Okay, so by the time they leave your parking lots at 6 o'clock, you've had them on your property for about 8 hours. Go backwards. What do you know about their behavior for those 8 hours? If they are the holder of the ticket. You know that nanosecond transaction when they went through the turnstile. Okay, so there's a lot of things happening in that person's day that you may not know about. And transpose that into gaming and retail. Do you think any casino in Las Vegas doesn't know what a player is doing and which table they're on when they're in the experience? They have moved much further, much faster than sports in looking at what that behavior is. Where do they eat? What table are they at? What was the bet on that table? Retail is very, very similar. I have a client that is a major mall, and they have 90 million visitors a year. All right, that's a league, but they do it a year. They actually have analyzed that if by gender, person who enters a certain door on a certain hour, on a certain day of a week, depending on what their first store they hit, they have data that says the probability of what else that person is going to do that day. All right, that is data that is purely monetizable.
Same thing in casinos, right?
Casinos are exactly the same way. They know your propensity for future behavior based on past.
Sure.
That's data. And that's where it's an exciting time in sports because we're just now trying to figure this out. We're just now getting the data. And one of the things I talk to owners a lot about is, they're like, well, I don't know, how do I monetize data today? It's like, look, that's not the question. The thing is, get the data, start storing it, start bringing it in. And you can always look back, but if you don't start collecting some information on what your fans are doing, you're never going to be able to develop a trend. Trends of fans in your building become monetizable, and you can start doing different things. And this is kind of crass in a sense, but I actually asked an owner if he'd ever been to a Walmart. Well, that was kind of the wrong thing to say right then. But I said, when you go into a Walmart on a certain day of the week, the end caps on the aisles are a certain product. The next time you go in, that end cap may be a different product. That's because Walmart has figured out what their buying habits of their fans are. And Walmart even announced the other day a true AI store that they're putting in New York to even further that. That's one of my passions now in the sports business is trying to help further that evolution that the sports we catch up. And I think one of the reasons this really started, as we mentioned, is you think about every sports, every time you've heard a stadium be built, it says, I'm going to build the most technologically advanced stadium, arena, ballpark,
Said
whatever
every
it is.
owner ever.
Ever. Yep. This is going to be it. Well, of course you are, but you're only going to be that until the next one gets built. But also, what is the metric they just used? Another stadium. We look inside too much. I think sports needs to look outside. We need to look outside of the sports and what are the other industries doing, because what I mentioned earlier, we are playing with our fans' disposable income and their disposable time. We are now competing much more fervently with every other experience out there.
Yeah.
And those are the things we need to start measuring.
And Jared, it sounds like you guys could facilitate potentially a lot of this data gathering. Obviously.
Yeah, exactly. So, Caesars Entertainment right now is working with us on our camera systems and being able to, as I mentioned, the facial recognition, but also mood and disposition. As people enter into the casino, as people leave a show, we can track all that information and pull that information into one repository, and then they can use that. This group of males at this age range were excited when they left the show at Chris Angel's show or Christina Aguilera's show.
All
Exactly.
the guys were excited.
And it's inevitable with the shows. The 7 p.m.
No
crowd.
offense to Celine Dion.
The 7 p.m. crowd is always a lot better than the 9 p.m. crowd because, as you know, in Vegas at 9 p.m. it's a mess. So
Sure.
But yeah, it's we can track all that information and then give that back to and we're focusing more on hospitality as well.
Yeah.
As you check into your room, likes and dislikes, and then we can give that back to the folks at Caesars.
Sure.
And provide that as well. So it all works, and I'm glad you made the point of theme and entertainment and
No question.
how that's crossed over because, like I said in the beginning, Disney, Universal. all those folks really have driven the industry, and it's crossed over into sports. So a lot of people don't know, but when you're in a line at Disney or you're in a line at Universal, they have accounted for your time. They know how long it's going to take. They want to be able to engage you while you're in the line. They're through those camera systems. They're reading your disposition. They're reading your facial expressions.
100%.
They're reading everything, and that's all been factored in. Into the design of in the build of the ride. Yeah. So that's what a lot of stadium owners and reps, what they're doing is they're taking that model and saying, okay, just like Battery Park in Atlanta, just like Texas Live, just like Wrigleyville, once you enter into that parking lot, what can I do with your time, and how can I engage you from point A to Z? So how can I make sure that your time is maximized throughout the full experience while you're at the field, while you're at at any venue? So that's
and historically, ownership or the stadium operators in sports have typically looked. And we heard Tony talk about it in the first session that we look to other teams or we might look to other leagues. To your point, they're very internal looking.
Exactly.
And that whole themed entertainment space is an area that can offer an awful lot of value to sports, entertainment venues, casinos, you name it, on every level of the entertainment spectrum.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Jen, Tony, any or Alvin, sorry.
No, nothing to add there.
Very good.
No, nothing.
Okay, so
The only thing I would add, Mark, is that
Yeah.
I think what's really interesting about it is you're right. Like, they all look at each other, right? And bringing in those new inspirations and
Sure.
things. One thing I do think is that the NBA really has such a tremendous advantage by having their team marketing and business ops group, which I had the privilege of being part of. And what they're doing is canvassing not just the outside of sport examples, but looking at the analytics and data from all 30 teams and understanding how those best practices can help each other.
Sure.
And I think you see that difference
Yeah.
in how NBA teams are really combating and growing ticket sales in a
Yeah.
time when, frankly, season ticket sales are pretty challenged
Right.
now in other sports.
yeah, good point. Good point. One more question, then we'll open it up to questions here from the audience. So 5 years ago, Levi Stadium, the most technologically advanced stadium in the world. All kinds of problems initially, right? A couple of years after that, Golden One Center in Sacramento, most technologically advanced stadium in the world. We're going to see next year the next one, right here in Inglewood. Okay, what's it look like to you guys? Jared, we'll start with you because you're the equipment guy.
Yeah.
What's it look like 5 years, even 10 years down the road? What's that new stadium look like? What's the new tech look like? What's coming down the pipeline?
I think you'll from a hardware perspective, you'll see the pixel pitch on LED come down significantly. You'll see that we just had a conversation upstairs with a gentleman. The price of LED has come down significantly, so I think you'll see more of that, more ribbons, more wow factor.
Yeah.
And it just depends on the venue as well. I think you'll see more fixed installations. A lot of the equipment is sometimes rented to bring into a stadium or like a venue, an NBA venue or a hockey facility. So you'll see a lot more fixed installations. And as I mentioned before, the engagement with your mobile phone will be significant in terms of being able to read those displays. Referring back to the suites, I think you'll see, and we've shown this many times at a lot of our trade shows, but you'll actually be able to engage with the glass on your suite. So kind of a Minority Report thing where you can touch the glass and pull up your favorite player's stats, or maybe do a picture-in-picture and have the Raiders playing on one side and you're watching the Dodgers play simultaneously, so you're watching two different games. But I think that total evolution will be kind of encompassed in the future stadium.
Right.
Also, we've discussed this is being able to order at your seat, right? So. Yep. However that's done, whether it be with your phone or through some sort of device, I think that you'll be able to say, hey, I'm in section 132, row F, seat 10, and be able to order nachos or any type of food or beer to your seat and no longer have to pass money down to the.
That's going to be the first world complaint when it doesn't work.
Exactly. As you know, we focus highly on high density Wi-Fi. So being able to stream games, I mean, that's one of the biggest things is folks actively using their phone at their seats and being able to not have to buffer, not have to wait for things to load. You want to be able to use your phone, post things on social, and as the team, they want you to be able to do that. So high density Wi-Fi is is going to be another thing that's going to kick
100%.
up.
Robert, you want to add to that one?
Well, yeah, I think I'll just go one step further. He's right on high-density Wi-Fi. Is when Wi-Fi 6 truly gets adopted, it actually is a little bit above what true 5G is, not what 5G is being deployed today, is kind of a marketing thing. But I think the wireless environment is going to be so exponentially different than what we do today. Because once you truly understand what that bandwidth does for you as a consumer, it does change everything you do. And as Jen mentioned about the gaming, I mean, why is MGM right now trying to get scoreboard feeds off of every building? They don't want broadcast. They can't have latency so you can do in-game betting. There is an entire industry with a lot of commas in it over here just waiting to go, but it can't go until it has a wireless platform that will support that real-time need. So I think that the stadium of the future, it's going to be wireless, it's going to be personal, it's going to be tribal. I don't think you can answer because there's so many technologies out there right now that need a platform like a 5G, Wi-Fi 6, gigabit speed wireless. They need that to blossom. And I think it'll just be an absolute mushroom. And if we're sitting here in 5 years from now, we'll probably laugh at what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, no question about it. April, we got time for a couple of questions? Where is she? Yeah? Okay, right here.
I'm curious, I mean, certainly what we see in the gambling world with MGM and those guys is those affinity cards. And they're tracking with the affinity cards, they're tracking how you give them the comps, the free meals, the free rooms, whatever, what they're spending, what they're betting, what they're buying. That seems like such an obvious opportunity for the sports teams to do the same thing and have that sort of check-in. I'm just wondering, is anybody doing it, and why aren't the rest of them doing it? I mean, again, is it just because we're still so internally focused, they can't get their heads up to say, oh my God, these businesses that deal with millions of people just like we do who have intense engagements and we're going to be in business with them, we should be doing that too. Is that the problem? I mean, but this seems like a huge opportunity, more than even what you're talking about in terms of the phone and doing a QR code, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. Have you?
Yeah, look at it from the idea of like a casino and an affinity card. Actually, that is just one element of an entire customer engagement platform they're using. And this is very big brotherish, but you think about it is when you go into that casino or a store or whatever and you load the app. Okay, so there's a lot of casinos in Vegas now. The only way that you check in is you have to load the app. Well, what that app does, it's now reading the MAC ID off of your phone. All right, and it's also, so there is an identifier of an individual that they have just triangulated, and you have accepted the fact that they're doing it because you said, I want to download that app. All right, it's big brotherish, but what they're now doing is they're geolocating you as you walk around because they now track your phone's location, and essentially they're triangulating, and they've got Bluetooth, and they've got all of these other things that they're validating that information as they go around. That is a little, I mean, that's big brotherish. Absolutely it is, but that's how they make this information come. Sports is a little slower to get there. We don't have an infrastructure base in a lot of buildings right now that kind of take the leagues in three. There's the top 10%, middle 10, bottom 10. The top 10, most of them are in that position. It's more a matter of opening it up, but there has to be an understanding. It's just not one system. There's got to be a layer of things, and then you start bringing all of that data together. Hope that kind of answered your question.
Yeah,
that's where they are.
To add to that is so like, myself included, a lot of manufacturers, there's a myriad of products. So as he mentioned, using the phone, once you've opted into that app, now I can push you content. I can track you. So in my case with our technology, once you scan that first light source or that first piece of content, now I'm following you throughout the stadium. Once you go to one of my POS systems, Panasonic POS, now I have your information in our POS. You're using our displays. So our devices and our hardware is interconnected, and that allows me to tailor my notifications that I push to you whatever your interests are. So now I can, repeat business, right? I can say, hey, I know you purchased a Cubs hat last time you were here. Don't forget about this, this jersey or whatever it may be. So that's how we really kind of, it is Big Brother, you're right, and there's some privacy stuff there, but that's really how it's done.
I think the only other thing to say is that the teams that are best at this today are the ones that have to be.
Yeah.
Because business as usual has made a lot of people, frankly, quite lazy and slow to it. Teams like the Portland Trailblazers are light years ahead of most other teams when it comes to analytics and understanding who their fans are and where their touch points are. The other thing to keep an eye on is the PayPal deal in Phoenix. I think the supposed points of friction in payment that they're attacking through this deal and the overall relationship that it comes with it, you're going to start to see a lot more of that kind of stuff through partnerships like that.
Absolutely. Time for one more question. No? Done? Apparently we're done. Okay. Thank you.